This is the Collaboration Dynamics Podcast, helping you work together better with Judy Reese, X-Ray listener, best-selling author, international virtual collaboration trainer, and master of metaphor. Hear more at xraylistening.com.
Hello and welcome to Collaboration Dynamics. With me today is Helena Holrick, fascinating collaborator, someone I've known for a number of years. Helena, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. Hi, my name is Helena, and I am a coach, a mentor, and mostly I really facilitate people's ideas coming out of their heads, taking the brilliance out of their heads, and really just shaping and structuring that into money-making ideas, into collaborative things that make a difference in the world. So it's really ideas into influence, impact, and income is what I do in the world.
Mm-hmm. Ideas into influence, impact, and income.
Yeah.
So when you are collaborating, what kind of collaboration are you into?
The kinds of collaborations are a meeting of minds, ideas that flow from one person to another. My belief is that ideas are great in and of themselves, but the input of other people make them sort of grow off in different directions and just create, I suppose, a melting pot of goodness of other people's influences that just make it more than what it was when it started.
So a melting pot of goodness.
Yeah.
And a meeting of minds.
Yeah.
What kind of melting pot is that melting pot?
I think it is because it's a pot. It's a warm pot. It's an openness and an inviting pot. I can actually imagine it being sort of sitting by a fireplace, actually watching the pot, actually being able to almost like herbs in a pot. People's input kind of adds flavor more and more and more. So yeah, but also the other image that sort of springs to mind, the way in which it would work is the melting pot it's got that metallic feel to it that actually kind of merges everything else and just turns into something else.
And sitting by the fire, is there anything else about sitting by the fire and the melting pot like that?
It's easy. There's an ease and a grace that allows for collaboration, that allows for ideas exchanged, that allows for support and nurture. And again, it's that little tinged with warmth. It's almost like everything is warmed up, therefore anything goes.
And herbs in the melting pot. Is there anything else about the herbs?
Yeah, it's all about flavor. It's all about, again, there's an openness to experimentation with flavors that are in there. Herbs are the thing that adds the zing, I think.
And when it's like, so collaboration is like a melting pot like that. Whereabouts are you?
Sometimes, I mean, I'm in a few different places, and I think that's part of what having the melting pot and the sort of the fire is about, is that I think different people add their herbs and spices at different times. So sometimes I'm the stirrer of the pot, and sometimes I'm the thrower in of herbs, and sometimes I'm just watching the pot do its thing. And the people who might be also then take on the role of stirrer or a herb adder, or indeed just savouring, watching those. So I think I'm all of those.
And what determines which of those you are?
excitement.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's excitement and potential. So the possibility of what's showing up, the kind of, I suppose, the savouring of the flavour that's coming out of the melting pot. And for me, it is very food related. So that's definitely what's in there. Is this whole, I think if I feel like I can add more flavour to it, then I become the flavour adder.
Mm-hmm.
If I feel like I can do some encouraging of other people putting their flavour in, then
Mm-hmm.
that's what I become. That might be a little elbow nudge or just a whisper to somebody. And when I feel like people have lost focus on the pot, then I go and stir it a bit.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah.
And where could a melting pot like that come from?
I suspect, I think a melting pot like that, I think we've all got one.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've all got one. I think we all carry our own personal melting pots around. It's actually probably more about where you share your pot
Mm.
and who you show your pot to. So it's actually sort of just finding it again. It's a space. It's an openness where I can pull out my melting pot and say, "Will you help me flavour this?"
Mm-hmm. What kind of space is that space? A space where you can pull out your melting pot?
It's a willing space.
Mm-hmm.
It's a connected space.
Mm-hmm.
And it's I think that excitement is in there. And again, it's an open space. It's an open space where you can there's enough room for you to put the melting pot down, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
and to just stop for long enough for a few people, or even just for time to be there for long enough for the ideas to not run around, but to just kind of gather together.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a gathering space, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And how do you know when there is an open gathering space like that?
Smiles. Smiles. That's interesting. My sense is that there's a desire. There's a desire or an excitement or an invitation.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's where the smiles come from. So there's an invitation to listen. Perhaps there's a listening that's actually created.
Mm-hmm.
And that then welcomes in that space where you go, "Can I put my pot down for a little while?" And would you like to sit around the fire and kind of watch the pot and add to the pot?
Mm-hmm. And when you've done all that with the melting pot, then what happens?
That's the bit that I actually really love. So wearing my hat, for me, there's a beautiful connectedness that happens when the melting pot has gathered all the ideas.
Mm-hmm.
And then for me, it's how do we serve this?
Mm.
So I would always take that into an action point of, do we put it on a banquet table? Do we put it, out in bowls? Where do we put it? And who's responsible for taking that pot of goodness away? Who's it for? Who's it going to nourish? So for me, the addition is not just in the exchange of the ideas and the collaboration and the thing that comes out of it. It's then how do you dish it up and get it out in the world?
Mm. And I'm curious, because you were saying earlier, before we started recording, that you'd been involved in a collaboration that didn't go so well.
Yes.
So I can't avoid asking.
Please.
So when a collaboration doesn't go so well, then what happens to the melting pot?
I think the fire goes out.
Mm-hmm.
And that means that if you can imagine stirring soup, and or the stew that might be in there, of all the ideas, of the flavors, of everything that goes in. When the stirring stops, when the heat goes out, everything just sort of stops and congeals and doesn't move anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Which then means that there's less impetus for other people to even flavor things up, or this doesn't look very appetizing or appealing, so why would you add to it?
Mm-hmm. And then what happens?
I think you walk away from the pot. I think there's potentially a conversation or two that might be around, can we rescue this? A little bit like when you burn your dinner. Can we rescue this, or is the flavour always going to be there? The thing that springs to mind is actually the custard I was making just the other week, because I think we've all been there and done that. The bottom of it was burnt, but if you don't stir it and you just pour off the good bits, they might still work. So I think there's a choice to do that, or there's a choice to go, this one is just too burnt and the flavour's gone. So let's call it quits and wash up the pot and leave it free for new.
On to the next one.
That's it.
So is there anything else about all of that and collaboration for you?
I think for pure collaboration, what shows up for me out of that conversation is that the warmth, the inviting, the space, the place to put down a pot, and that anyone can put down a pot. It's in the asking and in the invitation that actually comes in to say, we can make something more. It's not just me, it's not just you, it's a we, and we're sitting around a pot, and what can we make? So I think I guess the thing I'm missing is there's always a curiosity that sits underneath collaboration, which is what can we make in this pot, or indeed in any other pot? Because somebody else's pot might be a very different shape to mine.
So curiosity sits underneath collaboration.
I think so. Yeah.
And is there a relationship between curiosity and the pot?
Yeah, I think curiosity is potentially the fuel. I think it is the fuel that just keeps things going. And if I'm using the analogy of fuel and fire, then it is again that openness that oxygen feeds the fire. It needs to have the space in order for the wind to flow through it. So curiosity sits underneath and fuels the pot that then allows the ideas to bring out the flavour. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm curious, what difference does all of that make? What difference does knowing all that make?
I think it excites me about going out and having more conversations. It's in a direct way, I'll possibly be inside of me, I'll probably hold the curious question of, I wonder what your pot is like.
And did you know all of that before we started talking?
I don't think I did. I really don't think I did. It's it's a beautiful exploration.
It's very interesting. It's always interesting to do these interviews, and another different metaphor for collaboration.
Yeah, it's and it's delicious. I can't wait to listen to what everybody else has to say. I think this is a glorious series of interviews, and I'll do my bit to get all of that out there as much as possible.
Thank you very much indeed. It's been lovely to interview. Before we finish, if people want to contact you to potentially offer their pots and make some collaboration, how do they get in touch?
Really simple. Helena at helpingyoushine.com.
Smashing.
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed.
You're welcome.
Well, wasn't that interesting? So many excellent ideas in that interview. I don't know where to start in terms of the takeaways. I suppose one of the big ones was the idea that this melting pot of goodness was easy. It allows for exchange. There's an element of warmth. And with Helena, she was talking about taking on different roles in relation to the melting pot, depending on the circumstances. So, although her big role in relation to collaboration was normally about taking ideas and turning them into influence, impact and income, and therefore the biggest question around the melting pot was, how do we serve this? Who is it for? Who is it going to nourish? Sometimes she'd just be sitting by the fire, sometimes she'd be stirring, sometimes she'd be throwing in herbs. Her role would change depending on the circumstance. The other big takeaway for me was the idea that curiosity sits underneath the melting pot. Curiosity is the fuel of collaboration. And I've no doubt that we'll come back to this theme of curiosity in future podcasts. In next week's podcast episode, I'll be talking to somebody who makes a specialism of listening to individuals, and we'll be talking about how do we know when we're really listening, and what are the things that people can do to improve their listening skills. Now, if you've been following my blog on xraylistening.com, you probably already know listening. There's been some good research done by Harvard. Listening is one of the most important capabilities for groups which seek to collaborate effectively. The others in the set are inquiry, so asking questions, and advocacy, speaking up about what you believe in. So listening will be our focus next week. See you then.